So I've heard a number of interviews recently where Andy Summers, the former guitarist from the Police, talks about how Sting left the band right as they were hitting their peak. Well, there's a suggestion in this statement that he means they were hitting their artistic peak. There's no doubt that the Police were hitting their commercial peak. The Synchronicity album was by far the biggest selling album they had ever done, and they had been raised to an extremely high worldwide profile. But I take issue with the idea that Sting left the Police when they were hitting their artistic peak, because I think that the peak of the Police as a full band took place before the Synchronicity album, and I'm just going to briefly touch on a few reasons why. I'm not going to go album by album here, instead I'm just going to mention a few songs. Let's start with Can't Stand Losing You and Roxanne. These are both really well-known Police songs, and if you go back and give them a listen, the first thing you're going to notice about them is there's a really interesting band dynamic. There is a volatile, turbulent, unbalanced sound to the way that the Police play. The combination of their reggae-driven beats and the fact that they're a trio and their punk influences give them a really stormy sound, even when they're doing a pop song. And it's not, even though the songs are written by Sting, they couldn't really be played by Sting in a solo capacity to the same potential that the band gives them. So if we move on to a song like Walking on the Moon, which is a perfect example of a song that's heavily Sting in its aesthetic and its whole style, and of course he wrote it himself, and it's got a very strong bass line, but it's the guitar work by Andy Summers that gives it that dreamy quality that completes the expression of the song. And again, it could be an effective song without the Police, but it wouldn't be as effective. The band is necessary to really push that one over the top. On Driven to Tears, I think, is a perfect example of what I'm trying to get across here, which is the song is vibrant and powerful, but it's the push that the band as a unit gives it. They almost have a spontaneity to them, a bounciness, can't really overstate the aggression and the conflict that's within that trio format. It's like the Jimi Hendrix Experience in terms of the dynamic, but they don't sound like Jimi, but they are that same turbulence within a confined space of a trio, and it's a band dynamic that's going down on that song. It's not, the song's not overtaking the band is overtaking the song. So on a song like Omega Man, which was written by Andy Summers, I think we hear the Police sound reaching its band peak. In other words, I don't think this is the best song by any means, and that's not what I'm trying to suggest. What I'm saying is, because Sting didn't write it, we can see that the band has its own dynamic apart from him. Now, as we move further and further into the band's discography, which isn't much further, we see that influence pushing away. So on the Ghost in the Machine album, which is turning more and more pop-centered, they're kind of retaining the punk influence a little bit and that turbulence, but they're putting a polish over it and a sheen over it. That trio sound that I've been talking about starts to be diminished. And then, of course, when we get to the Synchronicity album, it's really only a pale shadow of what it once was, and Sting is quite in the forefront. And on the songs on Synchronicity where the band makes a bigger contribution, like Miss Gradenko or Mother, or there isn't a lot of that power left. They're almost just kind of making pop music, and I think that this shows that the early fiery, stormy, turbulent sound had pretty much dissipated, and that Sting was moving in a much more pop, much more jazz-driven direction that was founded on like a world beat and the idea of putting together more complicated and bigger arrangements. His songwriting was moving away from anything the Police were really going to be doing. So I don't think that they missed any artistic opportunities by breaking up when they did. I think they had already peaked, and I think that the Synchronicity album was a perfect crystallization of their pop sound, but it's not their pop sound that made Police such an interesting band. It's that earlier raw sound that unfortunately spent itself out, not too far into their career. So that's what I think. What do you think? If you have some ideas about this or any other issue connected to classic or contemporary music, please leave a comment below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.